Thank you, Maggie. Today, we'll be covering 4 topics. We'll kick off with our IT admin efficiency study. Next, we'll dive into how Security Copilot works. After that, we will showcase Security Copilot in Microsoft Entra. We will show you demos on how you can get started and use these capabilities. Then we'll dive into the cross-product prompt books and how you can leverage Security Copilot to look across various security products. Let's dive in. Looking into our efficiency gains in our Security Copilot IT admin efficiency study. We observed that in our Security Copilot efficiency study, we evaluated the benefits of generative AI on IT admins, our information technology administrators, by conducting a randomized control trial with IT admins using Microsoft Security Copilot. We found that Copilot confers substantial benefits to IT admins, including accuracy improvements across all scenarios and tasks, and time savings across all scenarios. Copilot's core functionality consists of its ability to reason across the vast data these solutions contain. In identity management, this includes all the existing identities, sign-in logs, conditional access policies, and alerts about risky behavior and more. Copilot can extract and summarize salient information from multiple sources, giving IT admins the complete context without needing to compile the information themselves. The results of the study provide compelling evidence that generative AI tools like Microsoft Security Copilot can deliver substantial productivity improvements in both accuracy and speed for our IT admins. Let's look at how Security Copilot works. One of the game-changing aspects of this technology is that you can interact with it using natural language queries, the same way that you interact with your friends and coworkers. Let's take a look at what happens behind the scenes when you ask a natural language query, because it may seem simple at face value, but there is a lot of sophisticated processing and computation that's taking place under the hood. Here's a very simplified look at what happens behind the scenes. After the user submits a prompt, the Security Copilot Planner uses security-specific AI orchestration to determine the context and build the plan using the available skills that come with Security Copilot. It then executes the plan and gathers all the necessary content and data. Next, it combines the data and context, formats the data, and works out the response and then delivers the response. All of this can happen in just seconds. Next, let's look at the experience that we have. We build experience to meet you where and how you work. Our experience is intuitive, meant to meet you where you are. Our revolutionary approach helps teams gain a broad context with enriched cross-product guidance via a standalone application development platform. In this picture, you will see that's our standalone, and you can use it in black background or white background. With this, for example, you can summarize a Sentinel incident, get incident notes from ServiceNow, get device context from Intune, hunt across Defender for alerts, and get identity context from Entra and data context from Purview, all in one place, all in one session, with all the enrichment and context you need to paint the full picture. Our next one is the evolutionary approach using the embedded portals. This approach embeds generative AI into your existing or known workflows of your familiar products. In this picture, you will see it's the Entra embedded portal. So if you are an Entra Power user, you don't have to leave the Entra portal. You have Security Copilot embedded natively into the Entra portal where you've been and the portal that you're familiar with. Next, let's look at Security Copilot embedded in Microsoft Entra. Security Copilot can help you secure your identities and access with AI, accelerate your complex tasks and workflows with AI, and further empower your team with upskilling and faster ramp up using AI, because you can use natural language. You don't have to know what the APIs are, where the blades are, which product to go to. Copilot does that for you. At Ignite, we launched a set of public preview scenarios, and you can read more about it at our blog at the link shown here. Now, let's dive in. Let's start with our Entra embedded portal. In case you're wondering about what do I ask Copilot, how do I get started, we've built starter prompts to help you start your conversation with Security Copilot. You can click on any of these starter prompts, such as tell me about the most recent sign-in failures, or which conditional access policies were applied to a sign-in for the user Adam. In addition, you can ask Copilot to summarize for you, analyze, troubleshoot, and help you know exactly what something means. Let's dive into a quick demo. In this demo, we are looking at starter prompts in the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. In the home page, we can see 4 starter prompts for summarize, analyze, troubleshoot, and learn. These starter prompts help you get started in your conversation with Copilot. Note that as you change the blade, the starter prompts are different and have to do with the context of the blade that you're operating from. Here in the identity overview page, the starter prompts have to do with the 5 most recent risky users, users deleted in the last 7 days, troubleshooting user sign-ins that have failed in the last 24 hours, and learn articles to conditional access policies. Showing you a few more examples, in the identity protection dashboard, we have starter prompts that have to do with identity protection. Same with risky users and risky workload identities. Moving into applications management, the starter prompts have to do with applications. Moving on to users, you can summarize how many guest users are there, groups, sign-in events, audit logs, and more. Let's take a look at how many users failed sign-in in the last 24 hours. Next, let's dive into suggested prompts. Suggested prompts help us continue our conversation with Copilot. If I'm wondering about what can I ask next, or how best to phrase a question, the suggested prompts give us a set of predefined prompts that we can use in the current context to seamlessly continue our conversation with Security Copilot. Let's look at suggested prompts in the Copilot Entra portal. We are in the users page and we are looking to understand more about a user, Natasha David. Copilot gives us a response about this user and further gives us suggested prompts to help us continue our conversation with Copilot. The suggested prompts here are what licenses are assigned to the user, what is the status of the user account, is it logged out, and more details about the user. In identity protection, we are looking at the 5 most recent risky users. Using suggested prompts, we can see what are the top 5 users at the high risk level, which users have been confirmed compromised, and which users are flagged as risky in the past 24 hours. In the risky workload identities, we can see that we are asking Copilot to tell us about risky apps in the tenant. Suggested prompts help us find details of the risky apps, permissions that are granted, and how service principal risk is calculated. Back to the users page, let's try out the suggested prompts on licenses assigned to user Natasha David, and we can further continue the conversation with Copilot. Next, let's dive into application risk management capabilities in Security Copilot in Entra. With this capability, we can quickly investigate and remediate risky apps that are registered in Entra. With Security Copilot, you can now quickly obtain insights for risky apps, apps with high privileged permissions, apps from outside your tenant, and unused apps in your tenant. Especially with apps that are registered outside your tenant, you can have Security Copilot quickly identify these apps, find their publisher information, and check if anything looks unusual. To ensure least privilege, Copilot can help you understand what permissions these applications have, which of these permissions are high privilege, so you can focus your attention where it matters the most. Let's have Copilot summarize the highest risk apps in this tenant. Next, let's look at the permissions on the risky app Contoso Learning. Let's find out what are the high privileged permissions on this app. Switching gears, let's look at unused applications in this tenant. Let's look at apps from outside this tenant. Let's find the publisher information for each of these apps from outside the tenant. Next, let's dive into risky user investigation. You can use Security Copilot to summarize the risky users for you. Copilot will give you a summary in natural language on why a user's risk level is elevated. Further, Copilot will guide you on what you can do next to remediate the user's risk level. It will guide you with actionable insights such as go create risk-based policies so you can then resolve the risk alert. Copilot also provides you recommendations to mitigate against attacks with quick links to help and documentation. In addition to the summarization that we are looking at, you can also use the open chat prompt experience to ask Copilot who are the risky users in this tenant, and then use suggested prompts to carry on your conversation, or you can use any prompts that you want to use. Let's take a look at Copilot for Security Entra skill on risky users. In the risky users page, we can see that certain users are flagged as high risk. Let's use Copilot's help to figure out why Toby is flagged as a high risk user. Copilot tells us that this user has 2 recent risky activities and shares a lot more details. Further, Copilot also tells us what we can do to mitigate this and points us to helpful documentation. Next, handing off to you, Maggie.
Thanks, Manta. Let's talk about signing troubleshooting. So, diagnosing signing issues and investigating access anomaly are critical tasks of IT admins. This process typically involves reviewing detailed signing logs, identifying patterns, and cross-referencing data to uncover potential causes of failure. Security Copilot helps address this core responsibility where timely, accurate information is essential to maintaining security and access continuity. Copilot helps you quickly identify reasons causing a signing failure or a signing interruption, or why users were prompted for MFA during their sign-in, and more. Further, with suggested prompts, you can continue investigating without needing to come up with additional questions to ask or how best to phrase them. Next, please.
Let's take a look at Copilot for Security Entra skill on sign-in logs. Here in the sign-in logs, we can see that some users are failing sign-in while some were interrupted. Let's use Copilot's help to investigate. Copilot comes back with a response. We can further ask some questions based on the prompts that are available. Here, Copilot comes back with the recent sign-in attempts by Brianna. And as you can see, you can use the sign-in logs to look up the information yourself or save precious time by using Copilot to help investigate and troubleshoot and give you responses at machine speed.
Perfect. So next, let's dive into how Copilot can help you look across your security products. With Security Copilot, we are excited to show you our new capability, which is the identity governance workflow management. So with this new capability, let's show you how you can leverage Security Copilot to manage your employee lifecycle. Leveraging your Security Copilot With Lifecycle Workflow, you can effectively manage your users' joiner, mover, and lever process using natural language that you can easily prompt tasks while saving time and clicks without needing to be that technical. Security Copilot easily configure, execute, compare, and monitor your workflow using natural language. You can use Copilot to get configuration, insight, and step-by-step guidance that will help you configure your joiner, mover, and lever workflow, including templates and task information. A few of the examples include what templates can be used for creating a mover workflow, which lever task can I automate with Lifecycle Workflow, and more. Next, you can analyze the current state of your workflow and their current configuration by asking prompts like, list all the mover workflow in my tenant, what are my lifecycle workflow settings? You can use Copilot to troubleshoot workflow results for single workflow and across workflow with workflow processing insights by asking questions like which users failed to be processed in the last 7 days, or how many mover workflows were executed in the last 30 days. You can use Copilot to compare workflow versions to find out who made changes and what changes were made by prompting like, show me who last modified a specific workflow and when, and compare version 1 and version 2 of these workflows. Next.
Let's look at how Security Copilot can help us with identity governance lifecycle workflows. Next, let's look at how many users were processed by these workflows in the last 14 days. Next, let's look at which workflows failed the most in the last 7 days. If I'm not sure about the templates available for Lifecycle Workflow, I can have Copilot find that for me. Let's find the disabled Lifecycle Workflows in this tenant. Let's find out how many mover workflows were executed in the last 30 days.
Perfect. Now let's dive into how Copilot can help you look across your security products. So with Security Copilot in the standalone experience, you can query across products, our Microsoft Security products, as well as third-party products that have Security Copilot plugins. With cross-products Promptbooks, you can reason over information across various products such as Entra, Intune, Defender, Sentinel, Purview, and more. Copilot brings you the insights without needing you to jump across portals. As Microsoft, we provide global Promptbooks that you can use as is or edit and update based on your requirements. You can also create your own Promptbooks using natural language prompts without needing to worry about or having depth knowledge about which security products, which blades, or which APIs have the relevant information. Copilot does this heavy lifting for you. Next. Perfect. So let's dive into an example. The Microsoft User Analysis Promptbook. This global promptbook can be used by IT admin to analyze and get detailed insights about user, their associated devices, and activities across multiple Microsoft 365 products. This includes sign-ins and authentication data from Microsoft Entra ID, device information from Intune, unusual activities from details from the Microsoft Purview, and Microsoft Defender summary highlighting important detections. Using the response from these prompts, you can deduce faster on whether the user that is being investigated has been performing suspicious activity, so you can focus on your next steps towards securing your system. Next, let's look at another prompt book where you can use Security Copilot to help you investigate risky apps, their permissions, specifically focusing on which permission are high privilege permission owners of these risky apps and obtaining additional details about these owners. Next.
Let's look at one of the prompt books that we have created for use inside our own tenant. It has 4 prompts. Show me risky enterprise apps in my tenant. Which of these apps have high privileged permissions? Who are the owners of this high privileged risky apps? And details about the owners of these apps. Let's run this prompt book. Let's dive into the responses. For the first prompt on show me risky enterprise apps in my tenant, Copilot is able to pull up the Microsoft Entra plugin, and let's look at the details. The results displayed here are a partial list of 15 risky service principals with risk level not equal to none and risk state not in the dismissed, confirmed, safe, or remediated state. Let's dive into the details for the first app. For this app, the risk level is high, the risk state is confirmed compromised, we get the risk detail, when the risk was last updated, and the application ID for this app. Copilot further continues giving us a list of the remaining 14 service principals. Let's now dive into the next prompt. Which of these apps have high privilege permissions? Show only apps that have high privilege permissions and do not show those that have none. Again, Copilot is able to pull the right plugin for Microsoft Entra. Let's look at the high privilege permissions for the above risky apps. We see that this app, Contoso Learning, has an application permission for graph group.read.all. Now that one is a high privileged permission. No other apps seem to have high privileged permissions. Let's continue on to the next prompt. Who are the owners of these high privileged applications? We find that the owners for Contoso Learning are Sarmis and Shanti. Let's figure out who these people are using user details. Let's look at the user details about these owners. We are able to get details on Shanti, who is a principal security person in our London office, and additional details on Sarmis.
Perfect. Handing back to you, Manta.
Thank you, Maggie. And here we have a pointer to additional resources, which includes our session at Microsoft Ignite 2024, our Learn documentation, and our Microsoft security video on YouTube on the Microsoft User Analysis Prompt Book that Maggie was just talking about. And this brings us to the end of our session today, our presentation today. Let's open up for questions. Who has the first question?
Yes, there's a couple questions here. Let's see. The first one, let's start with, if I want to ask Copilot about risky users and then about sign-in logs, do I need to switch from one blade to the other?
Oh, I can take that one. So in Security Copilot in the Entra embedded portal, there's a global Copilot button at the top right side, and you can use Copilot from any blade. So I think you mentioned risky users and then sign-in logs. You can
Yes.
actually ask about anything, any of our supported Security Copilot in Entra skills from the Entra portal without having to switch blades. So for example, if you're sitting in the sign-in logs page, you can ask about sign-in logs, user details, app risk, risky workloads, many of the things that we've shown you without having to jump blades.
Thank you for that answer, Mantha. Let's see, let's go to this other one because I don't think you guys talked about locations. Can I ask Copilot for sign-ins from specific locations?
Maggie, you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, for sure. You can use Copilot to query enter logs and ask for specific locations when you are writing to your prompt. So, for example, you can ask Copilot, show me the signing logs of people signing in from Florida or from Ireland, and it will bring the information for you.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for that answer. Let's see here. Let's go to, we have another question that just popped up. Can we use Copilot and Intune portal also about
Um,
Entra details?
Say that again. Is it using Copilot for Entra in the Intune portal?
I think that's what that's referring to. Can we use Copilot and Intune portal
So
about
for the
Intune? Go
got
ahead.
it. So I can take this one. So to get the best experience, again, meeting where you're at, the Entra embedded portal would be the ideal place. And now, from standalone, you can access all the security products, the Microsoft ones and the ones with the plugins, as Maggie was mentioning. Now, specific to running Entra prompts from the Intune portal, it depends on what is available to the Intune plugin. So I would think that things such as user details, CA policies would work. But if you go for something a little more complicated, like running lifecycle workflows, not sure if that one would, but that's a great question. Good to try that out.
Awesome, thank you. We have another question that just popped up. Can I use Security Copilot analyzing what if and conditional access?
Maggie, you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take that one. Yeah, you can use Copilot to answer questions about, what conditional access policies apply to certain users, and it will gather the information for you, and it will bring you the information as well.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. There is one more question that we have in our chat right now. Where is that? Can I ask Copilot about everything in Entra?
Wow, we love that too. At this point, we have a list of certain capabilities that are supported by Security Copilot in Entra. And it's a list of some of the things that we've showcased today. And this list is available in our public documentation. So for example, the things we showcase such as app risk, risky users, sign-in logs, audit logs, diagnostic logs, lifecycle workflows, user details, group details, these are supported. However, if you're asking for something that we've not talked about yet, um, we don't expect that you would get a very accurate answer. So if you try the ones that are supported, definitely you should get a accurate answer. And if you do not, let us know.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And actually, sorry, we had one more question pop up. Thank you guys for being interactive today. Can I ask Copilot to execute changes in Entra ID?
Now we
Maggie?
will love that. Yeah, we will love that, right? But like as the mention implies, like it's a copilot. So at least at this time, copilot it's able to read data, to gather information for you, and to present that information in a natural language form for you to consume that information. But it's not able to go ahead and actually execute or apply changes without your authorization or actions on it.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, we have another question. Can we extract how many users using MFA and Entra in Copilot?
How many users are using MFA in Entra using Copilot? Okay, so just restating the question here. Let's say I have 10,000 users. I want to figure out how many users are using MFA, or is the question how many users have registered a second factor? So I'm wondering if I'm looking at user details or am I looking at sign-in events?
Asking the person to clarify. Oh, yes, they said yes. to that question, Manta?
Oh, which one? Sorry, I gave an odd answer. I'll speak to both. So for example, if I have 10,000 users and I want to see how many have registered for MFA, um, today
They
you might
mentioned how
not.
many users details using MFA.
How many users? Okay, so from the sign-in logs, we can ask in sign-in logs how many users used MFA or were prompted for MFA in the last 7 days, up to a max of 30 days, because that's how long the sign-in logs are stored in Entra sign-in logs. So from there, if we prompted, we should be able to find out how many users were prompted for MFA or used MFA because you have CA policies asking for MFA. On the second question about the user details, certain things are supported in user details today. So we might be able to pull up authentication methods. So for example, in our global prompt book that Maggie was talking about, the Microsoft user analysis, in the authentication methods, you can ask, give me the authentication methods for this user Natasha David, and it should be able to pull that up. But again, the user and the user detail is the pivot. So if I make a generic statement such as how many users are registered for MFA, it might be a little too complicated, but if we break it down, we might be able to get the information. We'll have to try it out.
Thank you for that answer. And at the moment, that is officially all the questions that we do have. So I'd like to thank both Manta and Maggie for coming on the 425 show today. And we hope to all see you at the next 425 show. And have a great morning, evening, rest of your day, wherever you may be.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.